From monsters and ghosts to otherworldly beings, join the Explorers as they venture into the darkest realms, seeking the truth to what goes bump in the night.
Good evening and welcome to Explorers Seekers of the Truth, episode 20. I am, of course, Chad Charlesworth, and as always, I am joined by my best friend and co-host, Les Sienkiewicz. How are you doing this evening, Les?
Awesome. I was kind of panicked because I had to run some errands earlier today, and it took me down to Allentown, which is close to an hour away from my house, but I literally got back at 8:15, and I wasn't sure if I was going to make it in time for the show. And slight correction, I believe it's episode 21, but who's counting?
Well, evidently not me.
Yeah. How are you tonight?
I'm great. I actually beat you into the show tonight, which is kind of a different for you. You're usually sitting there panicking, waiting for me.
I know. Or I'll be paying attention to something else, and you'd throw in a little message. I'm in the lobby. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul Filiash is commenting tonight. How you doing, bud? Good to see you. Oh, we're talking about this. I'm working in the Pine Barrens in New Jersey this week. Oh,
awesome.
Well, get some pictures of the area and stuff like that, Paul, if you can, and send it to us. That'd be really cool. And don't let the devil get you. So I guess I'll get into my usual shtick here before we get too far in the show. As always, I'd like to tell you all about where you could get in touch with us. You could use the instant feedback feature on whatever it is, BeLive. BeLive has a cool little setup there that you could type in. Where is it at? There it is, BeLive. Yeah, if you type to us, it'll show up in the comment section under our show post there on Facebook, and we can communicate back and forth as, hi, Michelle. See, now Michelle and Paul have joined in, and we're able to see them and communicate with them. So thank you both for tuning in. Let me bring up the agenda now that I kind of went off course there. So you could get in touch with us at our website, www.explorersgroup.com. Hit us up on the contact page. What else is on that? Yeah, the contact page. You can also see our live shows and everything on there. You can find us on Twitter at Explorers Group. On Facebook, obviously, facebook.com/Explorers Group. We're also on Instagram and several other social media outlets, so you can find us on there. Eventually, we're going to be putting a list of all the places that we are hanging out now there on the social pipelines or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, that's about that for that.
Okay. So now for the oddity of the week, and Les, I think you're taking point on this one tonight. So
sure. Yeah, we couldn't. Usually, Chad is the master of finding the more interesting and entertaining oddities, and it fell on my lap this week, and I couldn't find one. So the only
Well, we did find one, but we read the story, and it was a boy who lays eggs, and we kind of talked about it, and it was too easily explained away. Yeah. So we cut that one out, and then we kind of didn't see anything that really piqued our interest throughout the course of the week. So
yeah, usually there's something floating around on Facebook that we just kind of see and we're like, oh my God, now that's odd. And usually we talk about it, but you're right. I actually forgot about the egg laying thing already. And it was only a couple days since we talked about it. Yeah, that story was it was odd, but it was more easily written off. But what we do kind of want to touch base on, and we won't spend a lot of time on it because it's not necessarily an oddity. It's more of an explanation of an extinct species or a possible, what do you want to call it? Relic or surviving hominid or primate?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, well, what we're talking about is the Gigantopithecus blacki or black eye, however you want to pronounce it. We posted a video that was put together, a really good informative video. It was done by the PBS on the Gigantopithecus, and you don't hear much about that, but it was actually really cool. It's on our Facebook page. Check it out if you get a chance. It's really cool, and they actually have a lot of great information. And what's interesting about the Gigantopithecus is it measures in at 3 meters tall and up to 500 kilograms, which makes that thing about twice the size of a modern day gorilla, and is actually considered the greatest great ape of all. And there are actually 3 types of Gigantopithecus, but Gigantopithecus blackeye or blackie is actually the largest of the 3. And the first clues that they found about the Gigantopithecus that actually brought it into recognition, I guess, if you will, it's the existence of the teeth. And they weren't found in the field. Hey, Chuck, thanks for stopping by. They weren't found in the field. Rather, they were found in a drugstore, in an apothecarius shop in Hong Kong, where Dr. Ralph von Koenigswald was looking for dragon teeth. And that's typically the name given to fossilized teeth that were used in traditional Chinese medicine. And more archaeologists sought them out because they were actual fossilized remains. But to the Chinese, they were a little bit more. They were used for medicinal purposes. But he stumbled upon what looked to him like a molar. And it was very much ape-like because it was broad and flat. And it turned out to be primate, but it was much larger, much broader. And he couldn't make the connection because the only relatable primate at that time was the orangutan, and the teeth were much larger than the orangutan. I guess what was kind of interesting is from what they're able to get out of the teeth is it ate a variety of different plants from the area, more of the harder fibrous plants like bamboo, and also drier, lighter plants, if you will, that would kind of symbolize that they moved around, and they think it was because of the fluctuations of the ice ages. Like there were several ice ages over time, and they theorize that the Gigantopithecus made it through most of them, but they didn't make it through the last ice age, which was one of the, I guess, stronger or longer ice ages. But what I find interesting about that is a lot of different species during that last ice age migrated across the Bering Strait into North America. And then you had, like I said this before, you had the woolly mammoth, you had the woolly rhino, you had cave bears, cave lions, humans came across that, and they followed their food sources. And what I found kind of interesting is you have this Gigantopithecus blackeye or blackie, which was a massive, huge creature. And you would think that for sure there would be some sort of skeletal remains left behind, just like they've been finding stuff with the mammoths, the rhinos, and all the other, I guess, ice age creatures of that time period. You would think you would find more of this great ape. But all they were able to find were a few teeth and jawbones, the lower jawbones of this creature. And it made me kind of sit back and think, because don't you think, Chad, that it's kind of interesting how we can never find any skeletal remains of a Sasquatch, and we're not really able to find skeletal remains of this Gigantopithecus other than small fractals?
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, from what I remember watching on the subject of the teeth that they did have, where the teeth were actually found in caves and areas that were sheltered from the outdoors, basically from kept in a somewhat climate controlled type environment, which with not finding full skeletons. Now, of course, to be a fossilized skeleton, you have to die and be in the exact right environment to be fossilized. So maybe not finding a full fossilized skeleton, but the fact of finding the teeth and the mandibles in caves almost to me would seem like there was some kind of primitive burial type system in place, using the caves as, and you can see this in human ancestors. We have societies that buried their dead in caves or created cave systems for the dead to dwell in.
Also use cave systems as places of sacrifice as well.
Yeah. So the fact that we've only been able to find a few jaw fragments, a few teeth, to me almost kind of, and where they were found almost makes me believe, and it has been seen in some primates that they kind of bury their dead in a way. So was this a creature that kind of had I don't want to say a funeral rite in the sense of how we think of it with, church services and stuff like that, and burials and viewings, but could they have possibly had some kind of understanding of, we don't want this body out in the open. We want it put somewhere. It'll decompose in here. And then that's why we've only found small fragments of the bones and stuff like that, because other animals carry parts off.
Right.
People, now here's the thing, people may have found the bones years ago, took them out and just ground them up into dust and used them in other Chinese, herbology and stuff like that. But it is kind of interesting because that's the big argument with Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to consider it, is, oh, well, we never find bodies. Well, maybe there is some kind of process they go through with their dead that kind of neither bury them or put them somewhere away that the most people don't or aren't going to run into them. And here's the thing, if somebody ran into a bone or two, they may not necessarily know. I mean, a rib bone or something like that, you'd see a rib bone, you'd be like, that's a really big rib bone. But they don't find bear. In Yellowstone, when a bear dies, they don't find it necessarily. Right. So it is an interesting theory.
Right. No, I agree completely, because, I mean, you have kind of two different scenarios. Because they were finding a lot of the skeletal remains of the Gigantopithecus in cave systems, was it that they were actually utilizing these systems as shelter, and places to kind of create their little society, if you will. And then they would just venture out to get, their food. Because if you think about it, on the Canary Islands, what was it? The Homo florensis or something? The Hobbit people were discovered in the caves, where it was a race of only 3 to 4 foot tall humanoids, which I think they were around the time of, they date back to around the time of the start of Homo sapiens and Neanderthal, where they were thinking that Homo sapiens and Neanderthal were the only two lines at the same time of ancient human. But then they found Homo florensis, which is a third kind. I think there was 2 or 3 or 4. But so were they living in caves, or was it just when they died out in the forest areas, scavengers took the bones, people took the bones, like you said, use them for medicinal purposes? And was it like porcupines or other creatures that chewed the bones for the calcium deposits and just took them in the caves to eat them?
Yeah, it is. I mean, well, even if you think about and I know this is kind of maybe a little bit longer than we want to be on this, but if you think about I believe it was an old Cherokee story about the red giants that they burned up in a cave, that dwelled in a cave. And, could, a large creature like that, a cave, some of these cave systems would be plenty big enough to provide shelter and a usable base of operations for their day-to-day life of gathering and foraging and stuff like that.
Yeah, you never know. There's so many different theories and possibilities that could have happened, and they actually were able to get a lot of information out of the teeth that could point to um, what it ate, what made it what it was, and possibly how did it die. But you never know until you find more definitive proof. But I still hold on to the theory that Sasquatch is more along the lines of not a relic hominid, but a surviving a surviving line of those supposedly extinct great apes like the Gigantopithecus. So and like we're talking about the different kinds of evolution, like with macroevolution, could they just have evolved throughout the last 100,000 years or more to, because they were stuck in that ice age and it wasn't so what's the word I'm looking, they were quadrupeds in the sense that when they were living in that tropical environment in Southeast Asia, they were able to just kind of meander and lumber around like most of the, like the gorillas, the lowland gorillas do now, and other of the great apes, where they just primarily their method of locomotion was quadrupedal. But could it be that when that last ice age came through, it was rapidly eliminating their food sources, and through macroevolution, they kind of had to quickly adapt to get to places more quickly and faster. And then they went from the quadruped walk to cover longer distances. They got that more bipedal motion. And because if you think about it, you take the Patterson-Gimlin film, for example, what they're saying based off of those, the shot of Patty, the forearms, the forelimbs hung down lower than what a normal person's do. Mm-hmm. So we are like, if we stand, ours maybe go down past the hips slightly. Well, most of the sightings of a Sasquatch, they say the hands hang down towards more next to the knees, or even in some instances below the knee. So is it just that that macroevolution where they just had to quickly evolve, where they went from that quadruped locomotion to the bipedal locomotion, and they're not 100% evolved into fully erect creatures? Because there's a lot of cases where people say, oh, I saw a Sasquatch, it was upright, and then it took off on all fours. So does it still kind of teeter between the two different means of locomotion? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, you look at these videos that people are getting at zoos and stuff like that, where gorillas are walking on their, upright and stuff like that for distances.
Right. Yeah.
Bear will do it, so it could be something along that line of, at a certain point it developed this, like, okay, I need to get further faster, so I have to adapt to this. Mm-hmm. But yet still, I mean, humans can still walk on all fours.
Very clumsily, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not our base locomotion, but it is still a possibility with our structure of our joints and our body and our muscles. We can still do that. It's like I always tell people when I train them in like the martial arts and stuff, is all the stuff I'm teaching you is stuff babies do, that because once you started walking upright, you no longer had a need to do this stuff. Your body forgets how to do it until you remind it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, it could just be a continuation of this, species of creature that has, changed and adapted to the environments over 100,000 years, and, are living in areas, that are better suited for certain types of developments, and others are, because you hear the different stories, the different sizes of, weights and stuff that people attribute to Sasquatches and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. These could be just animals that have, it's a warmer climate. They don't need to carry as much fat to stay warm or to have energy through winter. So they got thinner. They, taller but thinner. Stuff like that, because the fruit is higher on a tree, or the nuts are higher up on these type of trees in this area. So, yeah, I could definitely see it being at least a reasonable theory to work on when it comes to the possible existence of a Bigfoot or, Sasquatch, again, whatever you want to call them, creature. I definitely think it is a plausible, explanation or possibility. But also, speaking of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, let's just a note to the fans. We actually decided, in honor of March Madness, to create the King of the Cryptids tournament. The first round is the Battle of the Bigfoot, which is going on currently. We will have a bracket of lake monsters, a bracket of winged or flying creatures, and an at-large bracket, which is a kind of a hodgepodge of some different, cryptid creatures.
Yeah, that don't necessarily fall into one genre. I feel.
Different reports put it over here, It was flying, it wasn't flying. So it's kind of an at-large bracket. And what we're going to do is each one of those brackets is going to get whittled down to a winner. And those 4 winners are going to face off in the King of the Cryptids tournament, which you, the fan, get the vote. It's, Les and I vote too, but, it's you guys vote. So you have to, build up your favorite, creature out there.
Yep, just like Chad said, it is on our Facebook page. And the 4 individual polls, if you scroll down in our feed, if you will, you'll find the 4 individual polls. So go down to each one, vote. I think there's 4, right? You said?
There's 4. Yeah, 4 in this bracket. I'll be releasing the Lake Monsters bracket probably Saturday or Sunday. I didn't want to have too many polls up at one time. I didn't want to bombard you guys with a whole ton of indication notices. I figured this way we do it today, release the first bracket. Saturday we do Lake Monsters. Next week we'll throw out the flying ones will come out, and then the at-large one will come out probably next Thursday. And like I said, after this first batch goes through, winners of each one of those, in their bracket, move on to the next round and face a new cryptid.
So share that with all your friends. Pass the word. Spread the word. Tell them to go to the Explorers Seekers of the Truth Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Explorers Group, and have them cast their vote so we could find who truly is the king of the cryptids. What creature is it that everybody loves the most? So I'm excited to see what it boils down to. I know what my vote is, but my vote doesn't count. The vote of the majority is the winner. So, but we did talk about the oddity of the week is the Gigantopithecus video. Like I said, that is also on our Facebook page. It's in the feed, so check it out. Really cool video done by the PBS. I think, I highly recommend you go and check it out. So, off that topic, let's get into the subject of tonight's show, which tonight's show is about none other than the Jersey Devil, known by many as a hockey team mascot, a monster of the week on X-Files, and more fondly remembered as a PlayStation character from the 90s, if anybody remembers the Jersey Devil PlayStation game. It was kind of neat. The Jersey Devil also has a much more sinister acknowledgement as the state's official demon, which is demon, not demoned. Sorry, sinuses. Let's take a trip back in time when the Jersey Devil was known by another name, which was the Leeds Devil. And now it's said that there are more than 30 variants of the creature's story, but we're going to start with the most common tale.
Yep, that's right, Les. So now, me being the big history nerd that I am, I of course have to interject history and kind of give you guys an idea of the area. So let's look at the history.
Hey, you have to do that. It's very important. It's not just geekiness. It's very important because you can't learn about something in the present without first knowing where it was and how it started. So I love the fact that you interject with your history, you little nerd. Yeah, go on with it.
So, the area, before we get into the legend part of it, in colonial times, the original inhabitants first tried to farm the land. However, if you've ever been there, it's a very sandy soil, and it's very unproductive for any successful cultivation.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that grows really well in that area is pine, oak, and cedar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your three things that'll grow in that area. Now, most of the original inhabitants had left the area due, to the lack of the agricultural condition of the area. Those who remain relied on a budding industrial movement that had, basically had been starting in that area, where furnaces and forges started to create a new industrial community that provided, most of the munitions for the war, for the Americans during the Revolutionary War, war with pirates. Yes, pirates, folks. The War of 1812.
Which not to cut you off again, but we will find Blackbeard's gold because we mentioned that before. We are on a quest to find that gold.
Yeah,
So,
I mean we have to. I mean, we've looked for it at least once. We've got to be the people lucky enough to find it.
Jeez.
Yeah, but other products were forged, besides military goods at this point, and at a certain point, the iron industry in the pines kind of fell away due to the fact that out west they were mining better raw materials.
Mm-hmm.
So the local residents, or as they're known in a derogatory way as the Pineys, left the towns, kind of fell into ruin, and they retreated into the wilderness of the Pine Barrens. And their living conditions, plummeted, greatly by doing this. And a lot of the shelters that they were living in at that point were tents and lean-tos, built of sticks. And they survived by selling the natural resources found in the Pine Barrens, such as blueberries, cranberries, laurel, holly, pine cones, during the change of seasons. And it wasn't until the construction, much later, of the highways and all through that area that opened up new jobs and opportunities for the residents to branch out and travel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, as in any area that kind of has a tight-knit group, there was resistance from some of the more hard-nosed locals who, disapproved of the increased traffic and tourism and started to, that started to chew away on their natural wilderness refuge that they had for themselves. And interestingly enough, it was then that the legend really starts to take off. Mm-hmm. So it could have been created as a means to ward off possible encroachment into what they considered to be their land. Multiple stories had spread throughout the region of southern New Jersey from generation to generation, details always varying with embellishments. And, it's a typical storyteller. I tell you a story, you tell that story, you add a little to the story because you kind of read your audience and kind of build up, a bigger, faster, stronger story.
Right.
However, the core of the story, still kind of holds true.
That's true. Yeah. Sorry, I got a message come in, so I wanted to make sure that I got that taken care of. But no, you're right. You got to understand the history of these places before you understand the legend of the place too, because that has. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but that holds a lot to do with how these legends come into fruition. So now that we know a little bit more about the area, how the area was originated, if you will, let's start to talk about the more common tale of the. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because you just made a face that I thought maybe I lost my feed.
No. I moved the camera. What I see on B Live to see you in the comments. I moved that to my big screen, so now I have to look over to see you. So I'm the camera's straight in front of me, but I'm looking over to see you.
Okay, all right. Because I was chatting with Leslie to make sure that the feed was going through clearly, and I thought maybe I lost you. So no, Paul says, worked there several times. Very creepy area. It's nothing but sand and tight tree rows as far as you can see. Yeah. That pretty much sums it up. Paul, what I want you to do while we're live is go into the Pine Barrens as we speak and start doing some live footage and see what you find, huh? So anyways, back to the tale. Where was I at there? Let's the common tale of the Jersey Devil. That's what I was talking about. This tale dates back to 1735 in Estelville, New Jersey, where it said a woman who's pregnant for the 13th time, and dare I say it was not a lucky 13. Legend has it that the disgruntled Mrs. Leeds was so disgusted with the pregnancy that she proclaimed, "If I'm to have another child, it might as well be a devil." To her horror, her wish came true. The child, or should I say creature, was born with the head of a horse, but with horns crowning its skull. It had the body like an owl, except it had arms with clawed fingers, and as well as bat-like wings. Its legs were covered with thick fur and ended in cloven hooves. Curling from the base of the spine was a serpent-like tail covered in large scales and tipped like the head of a spear. Once born, the demon child began to speak, which is pretty creepy, and it cursed its mother before vanishing up the chimney through a burst of flame and cloud of smoke. It retreated into the dark and dense pine barrens and murky swamps in southern New Jersey, where it's believed to still reside to this day. That is one of the more common tales, or the more famed tale, if you will, of the Jersey Devil. But, as many of you know, my esteemed colleague, Chad, always finds more.
Yeah, so now there is a second origin story of the Leeds Devil, and some of this I'm pulling from Brian Regal, a historian of science at Keene University. And his thing is he theorizes, kind of that Mother Leeds, rather than being based on a single historical person, or originates from a colonial southern New Jersey religious political dispute that became the subject of folklore gossip, among the local population. And this involves like early politicians Ben Franklin and his rival almanac publisher Daniel Leeds, who was alive until about 1720. Mm-hmm. Which basically, as this story kind of goes, Daniel Leeds had 3 wives. His third wife had actually given birth to 9 children, which, even for that time is a large family. Mm-hmm. He held a position as a royal surveyor with a strong allegiance to the British Crown. Leeds had led the surveys of the area of the Pine Barrens and was awarded land as, payment, land in the area which is now the Pine Barrens. And it's the section of the Pine Barrens in the Egg Harbor area, which is most of the associated legend and alleged sightings come out of this area. Mm-hmm. And basically, starting in the 17th century, Daniel Leeds, who was a Quaker and a prominent person of pre-revolutionary colonial southern New Jersey, became ostracized by the Quaker congregation. The reason he was ostracized was his almanacs were one of the first the first in the colonies to have the astrological symbols and writings in them, mm-hmm. which basically led his fellow Quakers to basically denounce his almanacs and say they were too pagan or blasphemous, and they were censored or destroyed by the Quaker sect in that area. Now, of course, him being a businessman, he looks at it as, oh, you're making my book more popular. You're making my almanac more valuable to people because there's intrigue behind it. So he actually increased the amount of esoteric astrological stuff in it, like the different readings and stuff like that. He started to mix Christian writings with Christian occultism, Christian mysticism, cosmology, demonology, angelology, and basics of the natural magic as they considered it back then.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the Quakers, they feel it's blasphemy, and they kind of labeled them a heretic at that point.
Right.
The Philadelphia Quakers meeting, they, back in like 1690, they had a Quakers meeting in Philadelphia, and it led to a bigger dispute with Leeds. And Leeds actually started to publish anti-Quaker tracts and materials that criticize Quaker theology, and even at that point accused the Quakers of being anti-crown, so anti-British government at that point, which back then is a very big, point of, if the British government felt you were anti-them, they started to impose harsher, taxes on your group, harsher demands of your group. And this basically, the Quakers labeled him as a traitor, and for him, aiding the crown and for writing these writings, they actually basically considered Leeds as evil, and that was actually their basic stance on him, was that he was an evil person. Now, his son, Titan Leeds, inherited his father's business, which he continued to use the astrology and other content in his books. Now, he became a rival of Ben Franklin at the time, and the two men basically got into this competition on who's, Poor Richard's Almanac versus the Leeds Almanac, which one was more important or which one was better. And during 1733, Franklin, actually wrote or created astrology in his almanac that predicted Titan Leeds' death on October of the same year.
That's bold.
Well, now bold, his prediction was intended as a joke at his competitor's expense and means to, boost his sales.
Right.
The problem was Daniel Leeds did die that year.
Oh my, are you serious?
Yes, he died in that year. And he actually wrote a rebuttal before, when he saw what Franklin had written about him. He wrote a rebuttal and, criticized Franklin and stuff like that. And Franklin actually then wrote another rebuttal and referred to Titan Leeds as a resurrected ghost of his former rival.
Wow.
Yeah, so it became a very big back and forth, competition between these two very powerful men. Now, of course, it's all in the sense of trying to sell, more almanacs. But because Leeds had the blasphemous and occult reputation and had his pro-British government stance, and most of the colony at that point was already anti-British government,
right,
combined with, Franklin's, ongoing depiction of him as a ghost, this may actually originate or contribute to the local folklore legend of the so-called Leeds Devil lurking in the Pine Barrens, because that's where he was.
That's a good point. I mean, if you look at the history between both Titan Leeds and Daniel Leeds, there's a lot of animosity between two, at that time, powerful groups and a powerful person. Because you have the Quakers, which were a fairly large religious sect back then, and then you have Ben Franklin, who was basically one of the forefathers of the New World. To try and go up against those groups and that person is just ridiculous. And so it makes perfect sense that as a means to basically destroy your enemy is to make up a horror story about them. That their family name spawns a devil or of some sort.
And the fact that he predicted the guy's death and then the guy actually died within that time frame is
that's creepy. That's a little too coincidental. But But an interesting thing, too, about the Leeds family crest is during 1728, Titan Leeds began to include the Leeds family crest on the masthead of his almanacs. Speaking of them.
No.
And, oh, my God, I have the worst pain in my hip, and I don't know what the hell's going on. Sorry. The Leeds family crest depicted a wyvern, which is a bat-winged dragon-like legendary creature that stands upright on two clawed feet. And Regal notes that the wyvern on the Leeds family crest is reminiscent of the popular descriptions of the Jersey Devil. The inclusion of this family crest on Leeds' almanac may have further kind of contributed to the Leeds family's, poor reputation amongst the local people, and possibly influenced the popular descriptions of the Leeds Devil or Jersey Devil. And like a wyvern, it's spelled Wyvern, or sometimes spelled Wivern. A wyvern is a legendary creature with a dragon's head and wings. The dragon head and wings. It doesn't look like your typical dragon, which is, I think, why they kind of associate it so much with the Jersey Devil, is because it's more serpentine than dragon. Like I said, it has the head, the wings, 2 legs, no arms or forelimbs, and a tail that ends in that diamond or like arrowhead stereotypical devil tail, the pointy tail.
Yeah.
Typically more so sea-dwelling variant of dragons, and it has like the fish tail, hook tail, whatever. But the wyvern, I think, is interesting that he went with that, because like I said with the description I used before about the Jersey Devil, is the big long scaled tail with the point and everything. So it's too ironic how you have these, this family history of conflict between popular groups, and you have this family more or less scrambling to save its name, and then you're bastardized by all these groups and alienated from a lot of your community. And I mean, you would assume that in angst, it's kind of one of those things where if you keep getting picked on, or you keep getting accused of being something, you're accused. Well, eventually, if you can't beat them, join them. So you almost adapt that branding, if you will. And you know what? If I'm going to be called the part, I'm going to play the part, and then you become this devil.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of embrace, you embrace the statements and make them your own, and kind of, you take on that persona. I mean, if you think about it, it's not that different than like, you grow up in a neighborhood and there's always that house with the weird people.
Yeah.
There's always that house like, I don't, your mom would always say, don't go, I don't want you going to their house. Don't trick or treat at their house. They're just not right.
Right.
Well, eventually those people kind of, take on that persona of they're not right, or you notice every little thing they do different than what you would do. So, well, yeah, they must not be right. They take their garbage out on Tuesday instead of Wednesday when the truck comes. Yeah, they're crazy. And eventually those people just start to hear that enough, they notice it enough. They're like, well, if the neighbors think I'm crazy, I'm going to be crazy. I'm going to come out and, yell at the kids when there's no kids outside, just to kind of like, you want to say I'm nuts? Okay, I'm going to act that way.
Right.
So, yeah, I definitely think like at a certain point, some of it is just, I'm going to embrace the, you're going to call me the devil. You're going to say I'm a ghost. I'm this, I'm dead. Okay. I'll be that for you. I'll be the foil to your, founding father, Ben Franklin, even though they found dead bodies under Ben Franklin's house years later.
Yeah, that's true.
Ben Franklin wasn't exactly the normalest person in the world either.
Yeah. That's funny. I totally forgot about that.
It honestly just popped in my head when we were going through like the Ben Franklin and him fighting and stuff like that. I'm like, Yeah, but Ben Franklin did some weird stuff too. Like,
Uh-huh.
is that a little bit of like, oh, I'm going to throw this at you so people don't look at me and they think I'm on the good side and you're the bad guy?
Yep. Hey, perceived reality,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh my god. Well, that's back in the time too, where you where street workers and whatnot were purposely killed for medical cadavers and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot, and
Yeah.
it was Franklin and people like that used to be the masterminds behind that and had those uh whatever you want to call it, have those acts carried out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. And this definitely, and again, back in that time period, man, I am just getting blown up here. I tell you what, I'm in an
I was
important.
gonna, I was gonna ask you, is that your phone? Like,
Yeah. Don't stop.
do people know you're doing a show? Right? They do understand that. Like,
Yeah, and a lot of it's about the show. So I mean, we have people commenting all over the place, which is good. Good, it's
yeah.
interaction, But anyway, back in those days too, it was very, very common for superstitions to run rampant because we talked about this earlier, you and I have a burp coming on. I know it's going to come right when I'm in the middle of a sentence. All right, I think I'm good. Sorry. People were very much enthralled with the whole biblical world where angels and demons were reality, So I could see it, when a story like this is birthed, it would hold a lot more validation back then, especially if it was proclaimed by somebody of a higher stature, say Ben Franklin. If he's sitting there proclaiming that, all right, well, this family is this, that, and the other thing, well, then they are, because he's a noble man, he's of a higher stature, he's or status, he's it's got to be true.
Well, and the fact that like Titan Leeds' father was already fighting with the Quakers, and at that point, the southern part of New Jersey into Philadelphia. I mean, Pennsylvania is a Quaker state. I mean, we were started as a Quaker colony, so he's looked at as a early politician, a writer, a scientist, or inventor at that point. And you already have a target that a large percentage of your demographic and surrounding population already have an issue with. So if you say, he eats babies, you already have the demographics are already on your side that they're going to believe you, because you're already besmirching somebody who is already considered almost, a heretic at that point, is producing blasphemy. The fact that the Quakers were censoring his books and stuff like that. So
right. Yeah, because that's what I was going to say. He's already you said he was already ostracized and he's writing stuff of demonology, witchcraft, paganism. Like more, I guess at the time would be considered evil or dark or whatever. So yeah, you're right. And Cleo, yes, I believe Franklin was one of the first Freemasons. And I think he was actually
not the first Freemasons, but he was.
No, because that stems back to the Templar, doesn't it? The Knights Templar.
Maybe
there's a whole long.
Yeah.
We're not getting into conspiracy theories in this show tonight. I'm just gonna stop right there. But yes, he was a Mason, which I think he was one of them that were part to do with the whole supposed Pentagon shape of where the White House is. If you look at the streetways, it's supposedly
DC forms a pentagram.
Pentagon or pentagram, not the Pentagon.
It's where the monuments are in relation.
Right.
Which, here's the thing: the founding fathers were a majority were Masons, and they hired a Mason designer to design the layout of the city.
Right.
So they worked in a few of their little wink and nod type things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was a Mason, and um, I was on the Quaker thing, and I jumped off that track all
No,
of a sudden.
I think what you're getting at is being that he was a Mason, the Freemasons as a whole have a very secretive and very conspiracy theory, if you will, history to them, where people thought they were up to witchcraft and magic and sacrifices and all, all this kind of weird stuff about them, which they're probably just a group of dudes that just love to hang out,
Yeah.
and they were just really, really smart. But anyway, but yes, he was. So good catch there, Cleo. And it's a good correlation too, how that, the Freemasons they were like the elitist society, or secret society, if you will. So that would hold a lot of sway in who's right and who's wrong. But yeah, so where were we totally diverted here. Go back to the notes. All right, so we talked about the family crest and how its relation to the Jersey Devil's description, which again, through the histories and stuff, because that was their crest, that's what the beast resembles. So another thing I want to talk about, and I gotta find where I put that note there. There it is. I want to talk about some sightings, and I have this excuse me, on weirdnewjersey.com. I found some information of the sightings, and I'm just going to read it verbatim here, so hopefully it makes sense. So I apologize if it doesn't. The most famous incidents had occurred during the week of January 16th through the 23rd in 1909. Early in the week, reports starting emerging from all across the Delaware Valley that strange tracks were being found in the snow. So this is more or less, just to kind of, before I go too deep into this sightings, these were some of the first real publicized, I guess, if you will, the beginnings of the more of the mass hysteria. So you have the whole Leeds family conflict that we just talked about with the Quakers, and those Quakers make hell of good oatmeal. So the Leeds dad has the Quaker issue, the Leeds kid has the Franklin issue. So you're starting to come out of the 1800s into the 1900s. So this, you had this story. So now everybody thinks that this devil, does exist out there. So this is kind of the start of the mass hysteria, if you will. So from January 16th through the 23rd in 1909, early in the weeks, reports start emerging from all across the Delaware Valley that strange tracks were being found in the snow. The mysterious footprints went over and under fences, through fields and backyards, and across the rooftops of houses. Again, which really kind of had them thinking that this thing could fly and whatnot, because it went from all these extreme highs and lows. Jesus, I'm sorry. Last time we had our show, we were both getting dry mouth, and it's starting to happen to me again. The Mountain Dew's not working, and I don't have any other water.
And I'm sitting here fighting a cough back the entire show. Like
I'm just going to take a swiggy of this Mountain Dew here quick. I apologize. I probably shouldn't be drinking sugary drinks to try and keep my mouth moist, but whatevs. I like the flavor. All right, so they were even reported in the large cities of Camden and Philadelphia. Panic immediately began to spread, and posses formed in more than one town. Fear and intrigue grew even greater when it was reported that the bloodhounds refused to follow the unidentified creature's trail in Hamilton. Schools closed or suffered low attendance throughout lower New Jersey and in Philadelphia. Again, ironic, because Philly with Ben Franklin and the Quakes. Mills in the Barren Pines were forced to close when workers refused to leave their homes and travel through the woods to get to their jobs. Witnesses spotted the beast in Camden and in Bristol, Pennsylvania. And in both cities, police fired on it, but did not manage to bring it down. So typical with monsters, right? A few days later, it reappeared in Camden, attacking a late-night meeting of a social club and then flying away. A late-night meeting of a social club. Cleo, Freemasons, right? Could it be? So, kind of ironic.
I think that was actually like a moose lodge or something like that. I do remember parts of the story from back then, and it was like a moose lodge or something like that, or Order of the Elks type.
Which not knocking those clubs, but one New Year's Eve, a friend of ours had a band and they played, and we went to one of these moose lodges, and I'll tell you what, it was weird. I'll just leave it at that.
I was glad that this wasn't the New Year's Eve story I thought was coming out of your mouth.
That will not.
Yeah,
that
please.
Will not. No. All right, back to the story. Okay, so witnesses spotted the beast. Okay, so they were where was I at? So okay, the social club, and then it attacked the late night meeting of a social club, and then it flew away. Earlier that day, it had appeared in Haddon Heights, terrorizing a trolley car full of passengers before flying away. Excuse me. Witnesses claimed that it looked like a large flying kangaroo. Another trolley car full of people saw it in Burlington when it scurried across the tracks in front of their car. In West Collingswood, it appeared on the rooftop of a house and was described as an ostrich-like creature, which again kind of fits into that wyvern look. But the reports are kind of varying here. I lost place, dang it. Okay, firemen turned their hose up upon it, but it attacked them and then flew away. The entire week, people reported their livestock, particularly their chickens, were being slaughtered. This was most widespread in the towns of Bridgeton and Millville. The marauding misanthrope reappeared later in the week in Camden, where a local woman found the beast attempting to eat her dog. She hit it with a broomstick, and it flew away. Well, that's always my weapon of choice when I see a monster. While there has not since been another week to match the frequency, fervor, and intensity of the January 1909 rampage, numerous sightings of the Jersey Devil have continued to be reported to this day. I feel like I'm shouting. Sorry if I am. The tale of the devil has spread beyond the Pine Barrens and has been embraced by all of New Jersey, even to the point where it's been largely commercialized. The devil is portrayed in toys, on T-shirts, and is even the subject of its own feature film. What film is that? Emu, yeah. Don't get me started on emus, Cleo. I wonder what Jersey Devil film was that? I'm gonna have to find it. I'm gonna go on Amazon Fire Stick tonight.
I was gonna say it's probably some bad cheesy B movie somewhere else.
I'll have to ask Leslie then, because she's the queen of real shitty B movies. I have to tell you have to ask her about Wincroft the next time you see her. Oh my God, what a freaking train wreck that was! I'm never letting her rent movies again. But most famously, the Devil has lent its name to New Jersey's National Hockey League hockey team. And there are still many, however, who believe that the Jersey Devil is a very real, very dangerous creature. There's been a constant stream of reports over the years of devil encounters. Most often people report finding strange, unidentifiable tracks in the sandy soil in desolate areas of the Pine Barrens. Some reports claim that they are footprints of a strange bird. Others say, which we'll get into that later, Chad, you know what I'm talking about. Others say that they closely resemble hoof prints. Although, whatever it is, walks on just two legs. There have even been a substantial amount of reports that describe the tracks as being cloven, and well-cited descriptions of the feet/hooves of a more famous devil, Satan. While less frequent, there are still occasional reports of people who see more than just tracks and manage to catch a glimpse of the old JD himself. He is most commonly described as having the body of a kangaroo, the head of a dog, the face of a horse, the large leathery wings, antlers similar to those of a deer, a forked reptilian tail, and intimidating claws. That's an ugly son of a bitch, if you ask me.
I actually thought you were describing some of the girls you dated in high school.
You know what? You're not giving me a lot of credit here, pal. You keep talking about these dogs I dated. I thought some of them were attractive. I will agree with you. I had some bad ones, but you know what?
That one girl you dated had cloven hooves. Okay,
Oh, but she was so soft.
she could tap dance very well.
She could, and give a little squeal. But so I mean, as far as sightings, I'm trying to see what else might be there. I guess there's one more little write up I could kind of cover. While some Jerseyans embrace their devil as nothing more than a quaint figment of our collective imagination, a source of unification and pride, and a unique and important piece of New Jersey folklore, others see it as a very real creature and a threat to their safety. Wow, it's kind of interesting that people would have that mentality nowadays. I don't know. Still, others have sworn they did not believe in the existence of the Jersey Devil and have had their minds change after spending just one moonlit night in the Pine Barrens. Where a ghostly mist drifts across the cedar swamps. And Paul, if you're still listening, you're going to have to let us know if that's true, if there is a spooky fog that rolls around through there. And an unearthly cry of some unseen creature can be heard piercing the stillness of the dark forest. Few disbelievers can be found. How about that? Whether it's deep in the Pine Barrens or deep in our collective unconscious, one thing is certain. The devil still lurks in New Jersey and most likely always will. And I tell you what, I have a client that I do design and photography work for in New Jersey. And the last time we were there, I wanted so badly to hit the Pine Barrens, but they were way in the northern part of Jersey.
Yeah.
Basically, they were in New York City, more or less. It was like you could see it from there. But I really, in the early mornings, it's foggy. Paul says,
Yeah.
Are you still there now? Or are you home now? You're gonna have to let me know there, big guy. Because if you're there, you gotta get pictures and send them to us.
Let's kind of talk about some of that stuff that you had read in that first part of the sightings of, I guess that was 1909 sightings.
Yes.
Think about it. You had, for people who don't know the region or don't have a great understanding of the geography of the region, Philadelphia is basically about 50 miles from the edge of the Pine Barrens. So it's not really that far for it to jump into Philadelphia or Bristol, which is, about maybe a little bit further. So you have two different police departments who admit to firing shots at something. You also have a fire department that claims to have taken their equipment off the truck and tried to hose the thing down and were attacked. So you have three groups of public servants that are claiming to have seen this.
Mm-hmm.
Plus you have the trolley car full of people. You have a lot of eyewitnesses right there.
Right, yeah. And you have that social group that was attacked, if you didn't already say that.
No, I didn't bring them up. But yeah, them.
Groups. Large groups. And credible people.
That's the thing. You have the three public servant groups. Two police departments that admit to shooting at something. Mm-hmm. Now, paperwork was different back then, but for police officers to shoot at something back then, they kind of had to have a reason still. A fire department to get out hoses off the truck and try to spray this thing pretty much are going to have to answer why they were doing that. From what I remember, the trolley car, when I remember reading these stories years ago, the trolley car was actually damaged by the creature in some way. So you also have a trolley driver who is a public servant. So now you have four groups of that's four. This is three. I have to remind myself of math. You have four groups of public servants who all have some kind of interaction. You also have like 19 witnesses on the trolley.
Mm-hmm.
You have probably up to maybe 25 witnesses at the social club. Now, people can discard the social club because, oh, they were drinking or, but you have a lot of people with a vast amount of knowledge of your local flora and fauna
Mm-hmm.
who are saying this is not something we know of locally.
Right.
Saying, no, it was the Jersey Devil, which means we've all heard stories. We may have never really seen one ourselves, but we did tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But they would have known what an owl looks like. They would have known their deer population, what the colorings are going to be and stuff like that. And the fact that it's spread out over such a great area and in such a short amount of time. Yes, the stories do vary. The descriptions do vary. Did you have hamburger grease on your glasses again?
No, not today. I was hoping to get some Chick-fil-A grease on my face, but the kids didn't want that, so I just got some Slim Jibs and combos and a Mountain Dew. That was my healthy dinner for today.
Oh, it sounds delicious.
Yeah, I was going to say, it kind of takes us back to when we were in college, and that's pretty much what we lived off of, that and those horribly nasty cheesesteaks we used to make and not drain the grease.
I don't know why you say those were nasty. It's as bad as when I make fun of the girls you dated in high school. You make fun of my greasy cheesesteaks.
Hey, we still survived them. I don't know how the hell we survived them, but we survived them. You know, do you want to take the next part, the explanation of sightings? Because my eyes feel like they're on fire.
Okay. So, we were talking and kind of, going through the kind of rehashing that story and all. So now, according to, some stuff I could find in different places, such as Wikipedia, because I know that's a great source, but, you get a lot of people that want to contribute their little 2 cents on it. So to get a skeptic view of this, skeptics believe that the Jersey Devil is nothing more than a creative, manifestation of early English settlers. It's basically the boogeyman story to keep people away from the Pine Barrens and keep kids entertained and in line. And it kind of became the historical disdain for the Leeds family gave them a target. And, now you also have animals, that could be misidentified, playing into the part. Animals that maybe weren't native to that area that were brought in, because you got to also remember New Jersey was a slave state until early 1800s. So slave ships from Africa arrived there on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. So not saying that necessarily they were bringing animals in from Africa, but at times rich people tend to bring in animals that are exotic to an area, either for keeping purposes of showing off or for hunting purposes.
Right.
So this, kind of leads the skeptics' view on this is kind of a boogeyman story. You had the target with the Leeds family. There's misidentified animals, and the negative perception of the local rural population of the Pine Barrens. Mm-hmm. It kind of gives a stigma to this, area and this creature. The frightening reputation of the Pine Barrens, may have indeed have contributed to the New Jersey Devil legend. Mm-hmm. It's a historically, it's historically isolated. It's inhospitable, and basically people looked at it as this is where gangs of highwaymen, as they used to say back in that time. And all a highwayman is people that would hold up stagecoaches and stuff like that were considered highwaymen. So there was roving bands of them. There was a lot of political disdain for loyalists in that area, and they felt that a lot of them hung out in the Pine Barrens areas, and the loyalists who were doing business with the British Crown, the Pine Robbers, as they were considered, were, Barrens were deemed, the dregs and outcasts of society. They were poor farmers, fugitives, loyalists, Native Americans, poachers, moonshiners, runaway slaves, and deserting soldiers. So, the Pineys have kind of fostered a certain frightening story about themselves and the area to discourage outsiders from intruding in those areas and entering into the Pine Barrens. They were kind of demonized and vilified after two eugenics studies were done during the early 20th century. Basically, folks, if you want to see some horrible things that have been done to humans, it all traces back to the eugenics. The Holocaust, a lot of our mental institutions over the years have a lot to do with the eugenics programs and stuff like that. But to get back to the people of the Pine Barrens, during the 20th century studies, these two studies, they were depicted as congenital idiots and criminals. And that was, studies and research performed by Henry H. Goddard. And, it is, nowadays it's biased and inaccurate and most likely a lot of it's falsified, but this was their reputation at this time. And again, perception is reality. If I tell you that they're criminal idiots, you're going to believe me because you've never seen anything that disproves me. Now, you also got to realize, that area of Jersey does have a deep root in illegal activities. Atlantic City is right at the edge of the Pine Barrens. They say about moonshiners and stuff like that. Well, Atlantic County was one of the, if not the only place in the United States during Prohibition not to enforce Prohibition. That's where the casinos and gambling that we have now in Atlantic City actually stems from back then. And the fact that people would drive there, so they had to build hotels and places to stay, and they could make more money if you could gamble, so they allowed for all of it. And that's the show, I think it's on Showtime, Boardwalk Empire.
I was just going to say.
Boardwalk Empire is based off
HBO.
of HBO. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what that's based off of, is that time frame. And those people, to get alcohol, they either had to import it from Canada on ships and drop it off in the Egg Harbor area, or, as the mob was known to do, moonshining. So you have studies done in that early 20th century and stuff like that. So yeah, they get labeled criminals because they don't adhere to the status quo of the rest of the country and outlaw alcohol and vice and stuff like that, which is kind of funny. An area that at one time was super religious and Quaker based ends up being the East Coast, back then the East Coast mecca for gambling and alcoholism.
And corruption.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how that just kind of flipped over about 100 years or so.
Or maybe still just followed suit, you know what I mean, with a lot of these other religious organizations and whatnot, with some of the dark secrets they have. But that's a whole other topic, and I won't get into that. But, another thing that I think is funny that you said is a lot of the people during the 1800s, the Pineys, or the residents of the Pine Barrens, you said they were the dregs, the outcasts, the poor, the runaway slaves, poachers, moonshiners, deserting soldiers. They're all people that well, I don't want to say all, but some of them are people that don't want to be found.
Mm-hmm.
So what better means to stay hidden than to elaborate this what like this spooky story,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to keep people out of the area that you want to be. It kind of reminds me like the movie, well, I guess just the story of Robin Hood in general, but the movie with Kevin Costner, Robin Hood, Prince of
Mm-hmm.
Thieves, one of my absolute favorite movies. But when they ran into Sherwood Forest to escape the sheriff's men, the sheriff's men stopped. We can't go in there. Sherwood Forest is haunted. There's spirits in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same mentality where you have the outcasts that were hiding in the forest to stay away from the tax collectors and the wardens and all those other people because of the ghosts that were created in there. You know what I mean? So it's almost the same. Could it be the same theory for the Jersey Devil, where it was these maybe not as bad as they were made out to be? Because I mean, if it was a deserting soldier, doesn't mean he's a bad person. He just didn't want to lose his life. You know, slaves, runaway slaves, they're not bad people. They're just people that wanted to live. So you hide out and you make up a story so you could continue to thrive and live, you know?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's also Jeff Brunner of the Humane Society of New Jersey. He thought it was more of a natural creature that kind of prompted the legend of the New Jersey Devil, and he thinks it was a sandhill crane that was the basis of the Jersey Devil stories, adding that there's no photographs, no bones, no hard evidence whatsoever, and the worst of all, no explanation of its origins that doesn't require belief in the supernatural. But counterpoint to that, though, okay, I could see maybe if somebody saw it flying, they didn't recognize a crane, but I mean, it's still a bird.
Well, here's my problem: is if we look for a plausible, rational explanation to any flying cryptid story, there are two things that they always throw at us. Right off the bat, it's like standard answer A and B. We talked to Jeff Walmsley. First two answers, sandhill crane or it's an owl.
Right.
You come to the New Jersey Devil, it's a sandhill crane.
Or an owl.
Or an owl.
Yep.
You know, every time there is a flying cryptid reported, it's always, it's a misidentified crane. And it seems to be the sandhill crane, which these sandhill cranes must get around.
Yeah.
I've seen cranes. I know what cranes look like. I couldn't tell you the difference between this crane and that crane, but I know they're cranes. But they keep saying, it's a misidentified sandhill crane. These are people who have lived in this region, some families, for hundreds of years now. If there are sandhill cranes in that area, a good chance the people know what those are.
Right.
You know, I grew up in an area, you grew up in and basically we grew up in the same county. We knew what deer were. We knew what raccoons were. We knew what squirrels were. We knew the different types of birds that you would see in this area, vultures and stuff like that. Cranes that you would see down by the waterways and stuff like that. And you have an understanding. I mean, you may not see a bear out in the woods all the time, but you understand what a bear looks like.
Right.
That they constantly go back to the sandhill crane thing. Oh, it's always, and it's everyone I've ever heard, and every rational explanation is, it's a misidentified sandhill crane or an owl.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying that. Again, I kind of agree with him on this. Is there's no other plausible explanation that does not involve a belief in the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give them that fact. But there's nothing that says the supernatural isn't real.
Right.
There's a lot of story, there's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of, oh, well, we can prove this, or we can prove that, or we can prove that this doesn't exist, and this is just a byproduct of that. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff that says that, but there's no definitive, no, this doesn't occur, or these things cannot occur.
Well,
is there? Oh, go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, is there really a horse-headed, flying, cloven-hooved, dragon-tailed, monster in the Pine Barrens? Maybe not.
Well, there's a lot of folklore that kind of comes out of the Pine Barrens. I mean, I don't want to say yay or nay because, the world is a crazy place and we're finding new things all the time. Now, granted, not so many things that resemble more of a sideshow gaff, or a creative taxidermist, but there are some, like, look at the okapi. That's a kind of a really odd creature. And again, and I know you say you don't want to, but look at the platypus.
I don't want to look at platypuses.
But you know what I mean? When they were first discovered, they thought that was a gaff. They thought that it was some taxidermist having a little bit of fun. But due in part to its isolated and undeveloped nature, though, the Pine Barrens have encouraged various folk legends apart from the Jersey Devil. Many other legends are associated with the Pine Barrens, like supernatural wise. The creatures and ghosts said to haunt the Pine Barrens. Jesus, there's so many things that include the ghost of the pirate Captain Kidd, who supposedly buried treasure in the Pine. Oh God, if we start talking about more pirates, we're gonna have to go looking for that treasure too. But supposedly Captain Kidd buried treasure in the Pine Barrens, and it's sometimes allegedly seen in the company of the Jersey Devil, which again, you're mixing two unknowns and making it, a bigger unknown.
But pirate ships would plunder ships coming from other areas.
Correct.
Not saying that necessarily the scary full description of the New Jersey Devil is what is being referred to, but what if he had a large bat? Like the horsehead bat, the hammerhead bat,
or the fruit bat, which they call the flying fox. And what is that? India, I believe it's
I think so.
To. They're huge.
Yeah. So the old story of pirates with their parrot on their shoulder. What if we have this statement of seen in the accompaniment of the Jersey Devil?
Right.
What if the legend is just that of it is a scary story? People saw Captain Kidd come into these areas on boats and stuff like that and saw him with a larger than local creature sitting on his shoulder or with him, and all of a sudden we're 200 years or so down the road and this story has spun into the Jersey Devil. But what if the original sightings were of a creature that was not known to those people or native to that area?
True, because that's a good point. Like taking the fruit bat as an example, pirates were known for personifying themselves or their image of this larger than life, grandiose intimidation factor.
Yeah.
Like look at Blackbeard for example. He used to put the the cannonball
Can-
fuses in the ends of his beard and stuff like
Yep.
that and light them.
Yeah.
So he'd come with his,
Yeah.
with the fiery, beard and whatnot. Intimidation factor, so perhaps Captain Kidd had a fruit bat or something like that, right? Because some of the descriptions, the dog head, the bat wings, the leathery wings, and all that, and the fruit bat actually has the little clawed fingers on the tops of the wings, which actually a bat's wing is just overextended fingers, which is what makes their wings. They're not physically wings. And who's to say that, much like Blackbeard, adding to himself, perhaps they added to the bats to make it look like they chartered demons as part of their crew, and to strike fear into their enemies or the people that they plunder, to lessen the chance of them wanting to fight back, and would rather have them retreat and they take what's there.
Yeah. Also, the fact that, like you were saying earlier, is if I want to keep you out of an area, because like now we have a alleged pirate treasure hidden in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to intimidate you so much, A, that you don't try to follow me, and B, you're afraid of these things that come with me, that you never go look for my treasure. Right.
To ensure nobody would even follow you. That's it right there. It's all fear factor, But aside from Captain Kidd, there's other things that had come from other legends, if you will, that came from the Pine Barrens. The ghost of the Black Doctor, which was the benevolent spirit of an African-American doctor who, after being forbidden from practicing medicine due to his race, which, is bullshit, but entered the Pine Barrens to practice medicine in the isolated communities of the Pine Barrens, and is said to still come to the aid of lost or injured travelers. The ghost of the Black, and I say bullshit because I think it's bullshit that they wouldn't let him practice, not bullshit that a black man can't be a doctor. That's so. Just want to clarify that. I'm not racist. So where was I at?
You were mentioning something about a black dog.
Black dog, the ghost of the black dog, which unlike many black dog legends, is usually portrayed as harmless. The ghost of the golden-haired girl and the white stag, a ghastly white deer said to rescue travelers in the Pine Barrens from danger. There are also folk tales concerning the blue hole, and go ahead and make a joke about my high school girlfriends. An unusually clear blue and rounded body of water located in the Pine Barrens between Monroe Township, Gloucester County, New Jersey, and Winslow Township, Camden County, New Jersey, often associated with the Jersey Devil. And writing in the Jan Harold Brunvins. Sorry, I'm trying to figure these notes out. Writing in Jan Harold Brunvin's American Folklore, an encyclopedia, Rutgers Professor Angus Cress. Oh my God,
Gillespie.
Yeah, I'm just stumbling over my words. Called the Jersey Devil an obscure regional legend for most of its existence, and said that after more than 250 years in oral circulation, the legend of the Jersey Devil has many variants. Gillespie cites that the devil's image used on T-shirts, buttons, and postcards and cocktails named after the devil as indications that the recent history of the devil is more in the realm of pop culture than folklore. So we are starting to get close on our 2-hour mark, and we still got some notes left here, buddy. We'll try and wrap it up quick because I don't want to prolong the show and drag it on. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and much like any haunted location, you have kind of the primary story or the primary monster, the primary thing, and then you always have subcategories to go along with it, or sub creatures, sub stories, sub legends and tales. So I think the Pine Barrens, I think that there is Do I think that there's actually a devil out there? No. Is anything possible? Yeah, sure, of course. I mean, I'm not the authority of whether it's true or not. I don't think there is, but that doesn't mean there isn't something out there. So again, these areas, all these different cryptid creatures and stuff, the story starts somewhere. I think my opinion is more along the lines of what you and I had talked about before. It was an area of people in hiding, and they had to come up with something really damn good to keep people away from them so they could live and not, not be tried for their, whether it was the leaving the military or running for your freedom. I think it was just that. It was just really good stories to spook people out of your hiding space.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think to add to that, I think they just used the historical conflict with the Leeds family and the Quakers, and then the Leeds family and Franklin. It gave you the boogeyman.
Right,
It gave
exactly.
you the personification, you know, the mother Leeds story. It's still the Leeds family. It's Leeds Point area. It was the Leeds Devil. You know, it all starts out with that family. So they had their boogeyman. The story, kind of got built up, and you know, then it becomes advantageous for people to keep the story going, to keep people out of that area, to you know keep them out of the area, keep their things hidden. But now it's also being used in reverse because people are coming to those areas to look for the Jersey Devil, the take me on a tour. It's paratourism now. It's actually being the old use of the story was to keep people away. Now it's used to bring money into those areas.
Right, right. And again, just like we were taught, or you had mentioned about Atlantic City with the history of that area where it was the Quaker area, it was more of a religious area. Then, through Prohibition, became more of a not so nice area. You know what I mean? It was used for different purposes. I think the same rule applies for the story. The original intent was to spook off people and to keep people safe and hidden. Whereas now, oh well, I don't believe in fairy tales so much, or old wives' tales or whatnot. But you know what, the idea is really cool, so let's benefit from it. So you know what I mean. You still take what was from the past, and you're making money.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing with 90% of cryptozoological creatures: Bigfoot, Jersey Devil, Mothman, uh, Dogman, Beast of Bray Road, so on and so forth. Chupacabra. There's toys, there's stickers, there's posters, there's movies, it's making money. It's strange,
Yeah.
it's weird, it's out of this world, man. It's marketable. But one last thing that I'd like to say before we end the show tonight is some of the information we were providing tonight was researched through different books that Chad and I have in our own personal libraries. Some of the books were The Jersey Devil, co-authored by James F. McLoy and Ray Miller Jr., as well as Mysterious America, authored by Lauren Coleman. And we also find a lot of online information online from various sources, which we try and give credit to where credit is due. We like to name the sites that we find the information on, so we may paraphrase a lot of what we say as we feel it's worthwhile information on the subject, obviously, which that's what research is. Of course, we change things up to fit our show and to customize it, but the information is all the same no matter where you go. We just try to make it entertaining, and I hope it is. So in part with that, as we had mentioned before, we have we're participants in the Amazon affiliate link program. And the above mentioned books, we have, I don't know if you guys go in our comments under the show, you'll see a few posts from the Explorers group that are our Amazon affiliate links to those books. So you guys could click on it. So as long as you click through one of our links and make a purchase within 24 hours, it doesn't have to be the book or anything like that. You could buy anything, but you have to click the link first. Whatever you purchase within 24 hours, a very small portion of that purchase goes to our media group to help fund the show, future investigations, equipment, so on and so forth. And all that we do, I mean, we fund this 100% out of our own pockets. And we're not rich by any means, so it's tough. But we do it because we love it, and we do it because we love interacting with you all, and we hope that you enjoy what we do. And like I said, through the Amazon, it's not like if you buy something through one of our links, you have to pay more for it. No, you're still buying the same price. Why we like to go this route is rather than coming up with some kind of a donation site or something like that and be like, oh, please give us your money. No, we don't want you to physically give us your money. Basically, what is going on is you buy whatever it is you want to buy through our link, and Amazon pays us a portion of it because it was our link that attracted you to Amazon's site. So we're making a very, very small amount of money, if anything at all. But every little bit helps. I don't want to ask for money or anything like that, but we figured that's just the best way to do it without you physically having to pay us. A little bit of money goes a long way with what we do. So, like I said, those books are up there for you guys to check out. They are really great books. They really are. And Coleman's book, Mysterious America, it's not just the Jersey Devil. It's tons of different things. So check those out. You can find more out there. I know Linda Godfrey has some really great books, Monsters in America and stuff like that. Is really cool. So like I said, click through those links, go find other stuff, and build your own library. I got tons, man. I love those reference guides. So that was just my little outro there. On the links are in the comments section, so they're all there for you all to enjoy and add to your collection. So, anything you got to say there, buddy?
Well, we greatly appreciate, any support, going through the Amazon program or through our Ghost Stop, affiliate program stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we greatly appreciate that. That, helps pay for the show. It also helps, when we want to go do a location and, bring that content to the show, or go to an event or something like that. It does help out. So I'd like to, truly appreciate, everybody, that can help out when they can, Yeah.
And whether you do or not, just the continued fact that you guys come back every week to listen to us and to tune in, comment, that's the most important thing. That makes it all worthwhile. We don't care about, I mean, the Amazon thing is nice. It's just something like I said, it's something to help us out without having to beg. But just the fact that you guys keep coming back here makes us feel like, we're doing something good for everybody. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
We really do appreciate it.
Yeah. So we are going to wrap it up tonight, folks. I hope you guys, enjoyed the show. We enjoy doing it. As always, I'd like to thank my co-host, Les, for, doing such a great show here tonight. And, I'd like to thank the audience for, tuning in and being part of it. And, we really enjoy that. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys for listening and watching. And thank you, buddy, for always being by my side. I'll just do the little outro where you could reach us.
Yep.
Let's go through that again.
Do you want me to do it?
Smoothly. I got it. I'll bring it up. At our website, www.explorersgroup.com, you could reach out to us on the Contact Us page. You could also go back and listen to some archive shows that we have there and link to our YouTube page. While you're there, please hit the subscribe and notification button to stay up to date with anything new that we post out there. It's not just shows. We also post evidence that we find during our investigations. You could also find us on Twitter at Explorers Group, and obviously on Facebook, facebook.com/Explorers Group. So those are all the places that you can find us. We're on Instagram, Explorers Group on Instagram. You can look for us there. Vimeo, Explorers Group 79, I believe, is the handle there. And again, thank you, Chad, so much for getting us onto iTunes. If you go into iTunes, just search Explorers, Seekers of the Truth, and you can find all of our archive shows there. You can subscribe to our podcast and take us with you no matter where you go. We'll always be together. So on that note, thank you, everybody, once again. Thank you, Chad. Good night.
Good night, folks.